Producer Joe here from the Working Fans Podcast. And at the Working Fans Podcast, this is just a podcast that three lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes in a new area. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 lists on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast.
Everybody, this is the Working Fans Podcast with a man called Dave, and today I have a special guest. This man has been in the wrestling business for a while. He was the manager of Nikita Volkov for a while. This is Nikita Breznikov, and he is going to tell us about some of his experiences today in pro wrestling. Nikita, how you doing?
I'm good, David. Hello, everybody. It's great to be heard, because in these times, I don't know what they're doing here in this USA, but man, the guys got it screwed up.
Man, yeah.
All settled. It'd be ended, no problem.
No shit, man. No shit. It's definitely, yeah. It's nice just to be heard. Absolutely, man. So my first question, I guess, is how did you get into this wacky business, man? Pro wrestling.
I'm gonna steal Lou Gehrig's line. I'm the lucky son of a bitch on the face of the earth, man, because I was working for the police department, and I was big tape collector, which I still am. Now it's, of course, DVD. And I saw a local promotion, Nikita Volkov was going to be doing a show. So I was working that day, so I thought, you know what, maybe I talk to him. Maybe I can get a line on expanding my tape library. So long story short, we meet, we talk. He had nothing, but I had plenty, which I gave to him, and we became friends, very good friends. And because he was from Baltimore, that's where he's buried, in Baltimore County, and we hit it off from there. I pestered him to death to get into the business, and he relented. I got into it. We did it, and we gelled. We really did. And that's because of the chemistry, the friendship that was there. Like he and Sheik, you know, they had a great chemistry. It was just 2 guys that you just put them out there, and the rest will work itself out.
Were you a big fan before? I mean, you were tape trading. So what were you like? Yeah. What did you grow up on? What were some of the guys you loved?
I know you're going to give me a minute to do this, but there's a segue. when it was real. I wrote that because it was I came from a very severely abused home, both physical and psychological. And believe me, when people say psychological, that shit's true. It's not just all in your head. When you get your father, who's supposed to be your hero, when he's your monster, and you sit across, if you saw pictures of me as a teenager, I'd been a great art model because you could see ribs. I couldn't eat. You sit at the table, this bastard, and it's like, you can't put food down. And it's like wrestling was there for me. And had television every week. And when you went to that arena, it was Christmas. You know, it was just beautiful. So the book is about us, the fans. It's not about me and what it meant to us. And I say when it was real because, yeah, from day one, everybody, yeah, it's this, it's that. But we could believe it. And there was a lot of things like the blood. You don't see blood anymore. They don't have that because most of the wounds, 99% of the time, were self-inflicted. Sometimes you bleed the hard way by, you got a bad shot in the head or something. But, you usually produce your own. But they don't do it anymore because complications, medical this, and everybody friggin' lawyer and suing. So it's like, you don't see it. And that's what proves that it was real back then, because people actually said, you went to see a cage match, and we were like some kind of perverted, demented idiots, but we loved it if it was the right blood. If we saw our guy, the people that like Chief J. Strongbow, Bruno Sammartino, Bob Backlund bleed, we were going to wait for you when you came out that night. And we did. And they would be showered with everything. Their cars, flat tires, a whole routine. Because it was not just something you went and watched and then turned the television off. You lived it. You experienced that. And that kind of passion. Today Vince McMahon has a whole friggin' staff. He's got all this and all that. You can't make people care. You can't make people hate somebody or love somebody. They're either going to do it or they're not. And the magic back then, it was there. And I do call it magic. We were like kids that you turn loose in Disneyland. It's just like, when you went to it live, oh man, nothing in the world was wrong. You were happy.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you said that too, like the realness of it, because you care so much because you believe, and it's like and it is the magic, because I know like when COVID happened and they were doing those empty arena matches for a while where they had no fans, and I would watch a mixed martial arts event, and it wasn't as bad, because I'm rooting for the winner. I'm looking for the winner. But wrestling now that you're older, it's become more about, the ambiance and the smoke and the mirrors and the show a little more, because the magic is gone. And it kind of hit me. Like, I still love wrestling, but it's like COVID really kind of, put a spotlight on that. Like, oh, yeah, like I'm not as invested in the outcome as like when I was a kid. You just wanted your guy to win so bad.
And I'll tell you, David, I've been in many, like I said, I was policeman for 27 years, but actor, I've been in the presence of so many different people, lawyers, doctors. Wrestling has touched so many people. And when you say martial arts, people from the martial arts world, they're always in awe. The old days, not this nonsense today. And I respect everybody, men and women that get in there. It's hard work. You got to be dedicated. But today looks like a big acrobatic show. I was just on a podcast the other day with two old legends, and forgive me, I don't mean to use that terminology in a derogatory way. They're old timers now, but it's like, don't understand what you're seeing, because that's not how it went. It's called wrestling, not spotting. And everybody's out spotting each other. Nobody sells anymore. It's like, you can get beat. It's not a shame. The guy was better than you. Maybe next time you win, but sell the move. Don't jump up after he's done something that you're supposed to be carted off to the hospital. Sell the friggin' thing. Make the guy look good. That's respect. And then next time, maybe he'll make you look good. But today, everybody's in their own little thing. So it really shows.
It is interesting. Jim Ross said on a podcast recently, and I loved his work as an announcer, but I remember he was saying something about back in the day when he was doing talent relations. If you told him, oh, I can't lose to that guy clean or lose by his finish, that'll make me look weak. He says, what you're telling me is you're not over enough in your own craft to take his finish. That's what you're telling me. Losing to somebody's finish clean shouldn't hurt you if you know how to do it.
No. And the key always was when a big name would take a clean pin, that meant they're leaving. And they would leave the air. Back when it was territorial and they would trade talent, you'd have some of your mainstays. But for the most part, it worked out. The rotation worked beautifully. Somebody'd be gone for a year or two, come back. Hey, it's like a fresh start. And we're at it again with this person. So we loved it.
Did you ever, this is kind of a little off subject, but I was just thinking about this. You said you and Nikolai were good friends. Did you ever work with Evan Ginsberg? I did a radio show, I think, for a while.
Evan's been a good friend for 30 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. I interviewed him recently, and he talked about what a good friend he was with Nikolai, too, and what a great man he was. And you both said the same things. I was kind of curious if you ran in similar circles. So.
Well, now, Evan, of course, was one of the producers of the movie, The Wrestler. He brought Nikolai and I to sit down with Darren Aronofsky and Scott Franklin, one of the other producers. They won the first time before he put pen to paper, anything was done about it. He said, what is this thing called wrestling? This is Aronofsky, because he had no idea. Met him up in New York and worked with a writer for a while there. Then they changed writers and went in different directions. But yeah, Evan, I got to know him. He called in on a talk show in Baltimore. I had nothing to do with anything. Not wrestling, not acting, nothing. I was just regular cop just listening to a wrestling show on Saturday night. And they kept asking a question. Who was Bob Backlund's last opponent in Baltimore before he lost the belt to the Sheik? And everybody's calling up with Greg Valentine and Mass Super. It's like, no. I didn't want the stupid T-shirt. I said, look, I'm sick and tired of hearing all the wrong answers. It was Tony Atlas, because he won the Battle Royal, so we got to wrestle Backlund. And it ended with it was like a draw. So, but I said, I want to talk to your guest, because Evan was the guest that night. And he was telling people that this Hulk Hogan bullshit wasn't going to last. And I said, with Evan. And Jerry Moshenberg, who's a pretty good local celebrity in Baltimore, he's like, you guys are out of your mind. Do you know what the gates are like? And it's like, but it's not every month like it used to be in Baltimore, New York, in Philadelphia, and Boston. Hogan would not appear every month because it was the same bullshit. Blah, blah, blah. Right. Comes back, leg drop, boom, we're done. And how the hell are you going to put him in a match with Greg Valentine, which they tried to do in the beginning? And Greg Valentine's a great, just like this cover shot, 1 hour draw with Backlund in the Garden, February 19th, 1979. How the hell is he going to work with a big guy like that? It just didn't. And like Nikolai used to say, bullshit can get you to the top, but it cannot keep you there. And he said people feel sorry for the heels against Hogan because he kill everybody. He said,
Mm.
it doesn't mean shit now. He's like Bruno. Bruno was like 5'9", even though he was like a gorilla, but he was beating guys that towered over him. That gave it a good boost, a good push, and people could get behind. Hey, here's a guy like us, always fighting society and the boss and everything else, the wife, and it's like, man, here's a guy. He's got the same shit that we do, and he beats the odds, so we could get behind that.
Mm.
Not the fast that crushes everybody. It's like, now you,
yeah,
the man is winning. You know,
and it's interesting. And you know what? It's interesting you say that, because in my mind, I'm thinking too. Like, I grew up early era too. A lot of stuff. Like, right in that Hogan era. I was a kid though, right? I'm a kid, so I'm buying all this. But as I got older, I got very bored with the Hogan era. I wasn't interested. I started leaning towards guys like Bret Hart, Ric Flair. I started having more appreciation for Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. These guys that could, bump around, put on these matches. But I would say that, you know what, maybe that was the reason why Hogan lasted so long, because they started to market towards kids more, though, right? And the kids probably just, we just bought it.
George the Animal Steele. He said it best. He said, when I was George Steele, and I would look and people would run, and he ain't bullshit. We would run. We'd climb
I was scared of George
back.
Yeah.
But when he became the goofy gimmick George Steele, he said, I did great money with the merchant. He said, when we were selling lunch boxes and popsicles, he said, I did great. I busted my ass every night. And because, he was a legitimate teacher and a football coach up in Madison, Michigan, or Madison,
Wisconsin?
Yeah, Madison, Michigan. And, it was tough, but he would rotate his schedule around school teaching, and then he'd do wrestling. And he always gave you a good damn match, a good show. We love seeing George Steele against anybody. George Steele is like, just watching the guy do whatever, it's amazing. But like he said, when they went stupid and went to a cartoon, he said, I made millions of dollars. So what the hell? Did great.
Right.
Well, not millions, but you did good,
Yeah. Well, I mean, from that standpoint too, how do you say no, right? I mean, you make it
to a regular guy like me,
sure,
this kind of paid days, it's like, son of a bitch, that's worth $1 million to us. And Nikolai was like that. He did come from communism, from Croatia, in which because he didn't want to do that bullshit gimmick. He said because they stole the family farm, bastards would do this and that. But then Fred Blassie convinced him. Freddie said, Nikolai, now you can show people what those bastards were like. Plus, you can make a lot of money, you dummy. And he's like, you're right. He did it. Because, when he started in the 70s, it was all black. Black with the Mongols. He had the fur, but black trunks, black boots, all the way up to 1984. Then they bring this shit, the red flag, the red trunks, the red boots. Then he's the Soviet Nikita Volkov. And it was okay. I liked the beginning of 84, but what people forget, it wasn't all Hulk Hogan. Sergeant Slaughter was going to town with the Iron Sheik, and then and Nikolai and the Sheik as a tag team, and Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. That all was part of 1984 too. So Hogan it was good. The Rocky theme and all that, it was kind of neat, and I was a little excited for a while, but then it was like, this isn't my wrestling anymore. It's too different.
Yeah. I thought he peaked after Andre as a fan. After that.
Now see, David, that was like repackaged, and this is how you can take bologna and give it to somebody and tell them you got a nice steak. He and Andre had a good run in 1980 and 81, and he slammed Andre at the Shea Stadium. It's like, that was no big friggin' deal. And I mean, it's great. It's pretty tough to do, But, this thing they make, Andre's never been slammed. That's bullshit. Your own history will show that within your own tape collection.
Right.
But, because Stan Hansen slammed him, Blackjack Mulligan, many other people. And they say Maeda slammed him. No, I don't know. No, Maeda beat his ass in Japan. I don't think Maeda ever slammed because he was he was a good martial. He was like a Bruce Lee. And you wouldn't mess with that guy. Kind of like Mr. Saito. Mr. Saito was like, you could look at him, you could see he's constipated. Don't talk to anybody. Take you out.
Now, at this time period, now when did you start managing?
1995.
Yeah. Right. Now, and you were part of the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view.
Yes.
Yeah. How was that for you? I know everybody kind of remembers Jake the Snake and everything, but how was that night for you?
But when the bastards say that, and Evan Ginsberg and I, because Evan started out with a newsletter. It was a fanzine called Wrestling Then and Now, and then went to a talk show format. And he gave me a voice on that. And it's like going to Yankee Stadium and booing. Why would you do that? These guys are not in their prime. What the hell did you expect? This was supposed to be another thing on the menu. It's like, okay, you're going to watch today's stars, enjoy that. But here's like what somebody called a seniors tour of wrestling. That would have been great. But then the Jake the Snake thing and pirated DVD or pirated cable. The poor guy, Bill Stone, who was the main money man, because I flew back to DC with him because I'm going to Baltimore and he's going to DC, and he was just like, I don't know, man, this is a big headache. And then the other shit hit the fan, and then it was like, but for me, it was just a great, wonderful experience, and everybody loved it. And Paul Bear was there. He came to, check out everything and say hi. And so it was great. It could have really developed, but I think the guys that make the money, the sheet guys, which I don't give two shits for, I have no respect for, they make the money off the back of these men and women, but yet you badmouth something like that. I mean, come on. You should just say, hey, look, they got out there, they gave the best they could. I mean, my God, one-man gang and Abdul the Butcher, it was a bloodbath.
Yeah.
They poured it out. It's like, come on, man, here they are. They're trying. That's all. All anybody can ask of you is to try and give everything you've got. However it turns out, it turns out. But,
It is interesting. Yeah, people tend to conjure the negative. Like, I remember some stuff about that. Like, Tully Blanchard cut a hell of a promo and was still, it was like, man, Tully could still go,
When people say it's the worst pay-per-view of all time, it's like, I love that because I come from the world of acting as well. I'm a union actor. And as long as they're talking about you, it's good. And that would have its own magic to say it's the worst pay-per-view of all time. But there's no way. I've seen some shit over the years. It's like, you got to be kidding me. That friggin' cartoon, that stupidity, get out of here.
Oh, man. So I was talking to somebody today. They were talking about an episode of Smackdown last night. I'll show you where I'm going with this. They did this pull apart with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and a friend of his texted. He goes, "Is that actually happening? Like, what's did they go up?" And like I said, and I was looking at it, and because these two guys, they're a little bit different from the other cartoon guys, right? Like Brock has that legitimate background, so the way it was portrayed, I'm like, I know better. I've been watching this stuff since I'm 4 years old, and obviously other fan, but I'm like, oh, so there's still, like, if you're a casual fan, if it's done right, it hit me in the head. There is still, like, even in today's market, that they don't know. It looks a little different. And the reason why I bring that up, because in 95, it's still not quite like today, right? There's still more, I want to say, even though the internet's starting to come out, there's still more of belief in everything that's going on, right? And the character you're portraying, I imagine that there must have been some times where you had some incidents with fans, and maybe things got a lot heated. Yeah, I'm curious about some of that.
Yes, there was a guy in it was Pennsylvania. We were, believe it or not, it was an ice skating rink, and over the years, you weren't always at Madison Square Garden. That would be like the Black Friday of the company, but then the Boston and Baltimore, that's where they would make the big money. But in the between, during the week, you'd hit high schools, like in New York or in Brooklyn, there was Ice World, and they would have regular shows there, even in the summertime. Of course, no rink or anything, but so we're doing a show there, working with a local guy, Kid USA. He was the stunt double for Mickey Rourke in the movie The Wrestler. I can't believe nobody ever picked him up over the years. He had a hell of a great gimmick with the Kid USA. But anyway, we're having a pretty good match. So I'm doing my thing at ringside. And this guy, he looks up at me and he says, "You MF, I'm going to get you. I'm going to wait for you. I'm a Green Beret and nobody spits on this country." I said, "I had your mother last night. Go take a walk. She said I was good," and this guy's starting to cook, right? So I don't think nothing of it. So I'm getting ready to go to the parking lot, and I'm like, "Oh shit, Nikolai, there's that bastard. He's a Green Beret." He's like, "I see you later. I'm gonna go put the shit in the car." I said, "You bastard, where are you going?" So this guy, he's coming up. He's ready for business. I said, whoa, buddy, whoa. I dropped the accent. I said, showing my badges, and look, I'm on your side. I'm a policeman. This is all entertainment. He's like, "No shit, you fooled me." I said, "Good, that's the whole idea. It's supposed to be you, man." Pouring out, it's the greatest catharsis. Before 9/11 happened, Nikolai and I would do more for patriotism in 15 minutes than any of these bullshit politicians could do for 10 years, because it brought the people together, the USA and all that stuff. It's like, that's great. That's good. To be in an arena and have them throw shit at you and spit and things like that. Because we did a thing in Virginia one time with Ivan Koloff and Nikolai as a tag team. Poor Ivan, though, it was like, he said, "Listen, tomorrow I'm going to manage New York Nikolai as a team." He said, "I've been out of this too long." I said, "All right, it's a deal." It's tough. People don't realize when they say that F word, there's nothing fake about wrestling. It's got its mystique. It's got its outcomes. You got to keep control of it or it's going to be all over the board. But there ain't a damn thing fake about it. And you take a look at some of the old timers' foreheads from the scars, and it's like, that shit's not fake, man. Please don't disrespect people with that word.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, look at Mick Foley missing part of his ear, his hip, and some of the stuff. It's just crazy. And I always say that too. Like, I mean, it's a different kind of toughness. You're like, okay, you can be a boxer and you can be an MMA guy. You have this too. But do those guys want to fall down on their back and they want to get slammed down constantly? Or, it's a different kind of toughness.
Yes. I tell you, there was a guy named Cal Rudman who's a philanthropist in Philadelphia area. He was a disc jockey and things like. He was good friends with Vince, but he was doing the color for the Spectrum shows on the Prism cable network back in the 80s, and Dick Graham was doing the commentary. And he had actually gone to medical school at one time. And Cal Rudman said, "All of my training, all of my knowledge goes against everything I'm witnessing with these guys." He said they must be Klingons from another planet or something, because there's no way the human body, the impact of the kidneys and the organs, it's like it just cannot absorb this kind of punishment. Yet I'm watching it, and I know in a couple of days, if not tomorrow, they'll be back at it again. It's not like boxing where you take 3 or 4 or 5 months off to recover from the trauma. And see, that's another thing with the poor boxers. Now, I got to meet Chuck Whitner over the years.
Yep.
He's the guy that dropped Ali. And I always thought Ali was the greatest, without a doubt, growing up in the 70s. I think the 70s was the greatest sports era of all time. But when I took a look at Wepner, that fist, because there's a picture, he's got his arm around my shoulder, and that fist, the hand is there, and I was like, son of a bitch, that's as big as my head. Glove or not, that bastard hit you. How did Ali get up? Just get off the canvas. You gotta be the greatest. That's unbelievable. So yeah, I mean the trauma, the pinpoint hemorrhaging. It's like even pro football.
Right.
Yeah, they're wearing a helmet, but that brain is just taking. Because my wife, she's a brain tumor survivor, and I learned a lot about it from that. It's like you can't take that abuse. Kids should not be doing football. Kids in high school, they should wait because believe it or not, even at that age, your skull's not really fully developed. Give them maybe another 3, 4, 5 years, and then you can maybe take that pounding. But helmet or not, that brain is getting battered around. That's just
yeah. It's a rough life, man.
Yeah. And being on the road, like Nick Evans, 350 days on the road, that's true. It's like a lot of divorces because it's just hard. And then you're estranged from the kids. The kids don't know who you are. Then they look at you like you a piece of shit. And it's like, yeah, but you're putting the money on the bread on the table. That's what you chose as your living, and you have to respect that.
I'll ask you one more thing. We're going to get into your book in a second. I want one more thing. I'm kind of curious because you've done some acting and stuff too. And I hear that from a performer standpoint with pro wrestling, because you're working directly with that crowd. So the high, I feel, is trying to be a little, you know what I mean? Like, it's different, right? I mean, what are some of the differences?
Well, I actually had an argument with a woman one time who was our dialogue coach on a movie called Brush with Danger. And she's a pretty good Hollywood bigwig at the time. And she was big in the theater. So she's getting to know me, trying to help me and everybody do our bits. And she's like, well, so Nikita, what's your theater experience? I said, well, it's pro wrestling. And she's like, that's not theater. I said, wait a minute. In fact, a good friend of Evan and mine, Jeff Archer, wrote a book, Theater in the Squared Circle. And it's like, that's what it is. We're before a live crowd. If you screw up the finish, you're dead. You got to be able to portray that message and touch people. That's what we're doing. She didn't want to buy it, but it's like, no bullshit. It is. That is theater without a doubt, because definitely know who the good guy is, who the bad guy is, and the reaction. You can't make that happen. It's gonna, if they don't naturally feel it, they'll just sit there all night, and like in New York where it's the toughest, and they'll say boring, or they'll chant bullshit. Like, yeah. But you know, it's funny. You talk about the differences. There are some actors that even just within a crew, it's like not a closed set, but that's all that's there. You, the other actors in the crew, they still get nervous with the camera on, and it's like, what the hell? What are you doing here? You know, that's why I say kids are the best actors, because they believe what they're doing. They're put on a little performance for the family. You can't tell that kid they're not whatever they're trying to be. It's like, that's the whole key. The great Stanislavski, who a lot of people rip off over the years and say they're the great acting coach, but he was from the Moscow Art Theater. That's what you got to do. And Nikolai used to tell me, he said, you don't believe it, nobody else going to believe it. So if you don't want to do this shit right, go sit down. But if you do, then you put everything in it. And that's how it worked. That's like my name. One time my brother-in-law said, how do you work with two names? I said, I don't know, you just do. My birth name is like foreign to me now. I'm Nikita more than anything else.
Yeah.
You just you learn to get an ear for, especially a name like that. And like I'm being Joe or Bob or somebody else. That's like, you just get lost in the crowd. That stands out. So it's like, and then with Nikolai and Nikita, people would call me Nikolai, call him Nikita. It's like, we did that on purpose one day. It's like, we go, Nikolai, almost the comedian. And I tell you what, that's another thing. Like Stanislavski used to say, not the Three Stooges, who are great, but you put some comedy in all you do, and that goes over bigger than, and people remember it. It doesn't always have to be like bloodletting or grim, horrible tales. You put a little comedy in things, and it works nice.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, your book. I do want to get into that because I'm interested. You have a book. How did you get involved?
The master, Scott Teal from crowbarpress.com, where you can get this, or it's on the net on Amazon, but that's only the Kindle version, which is fine. But what I really like about this, and I didn't even know Scott was going to do it, these ads that appeared in the newspaper. It's full. That's what this book is. It's only $20, people. I mean, you can't even go to friggin' McDonald's for $20 anymore. If it's more, if you're going to get a halfway decent thing, but it's packed with passion. It's almost 300 pages of. It's not this day in history, which I had a hard time selling Scott on that because he didn't want to get into that. But when I gave him my concept of it's a fan's point of view and what it meant to us, each incident, I don't think I've missed anything from the 70s. And that's what this covers, 1970, the 79, and the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and how it interacted with our lives. And like when Spiros Arion, I don't know if you know that name, but that was huge in 1974 when he turned on the Chief and Bruno at the same time in a tag match against the Valiant Brothers. It was like, oh, yeah, the Valiant Brothers, oh, yeah, Jimmy and Johnny with Lou Albano. It was just, it was a different world. You can't, it's like when the saying you try to tell a stranger about rock and roll. It's like the wrestling in the 70s. You had to limit it. If you were lucky to be a part of it or go to arenas and things like that, you had the world, man, without a doubt. Because it was a magical world. It really was. And then the early 80s, like a lot of people talk about Bob Backlund. They had to pad the card. No, they didn't pad the card. Go look at the tapes. When he beats the Iron Sheik, at the time it was Great Hussein, when he beats when he reversed the figure 4 leg lock in the guard, I mean, the roof came off, spun around, and landed back. That wasn't anything other than Bob Backlund. He wasn't Bruno. He was Bob Backlund. And me, as a fan at that time, loved him for that. So, yeah. What, to me, I'm not getting rich off of this, and that's not why we did it, because Scott Teal said we preserved the history. And to me, this was a payback to the people that were there for me when I was being abused. I turned on the television, and when I entered their world, they still didn't let me down because they could have just said, hey, go learn on your own, kid. But they embraced me, and they helped me. Because I could have ended up a cripple at any time, because this is some serious stuff that's done in that ring. You step inside that squared circle, good luck to you, because you don't know what the finish will when you come out. You just don't know if you'll survive or not.
Awesome, man. I really do. I appreciate and respect that. Keeping the history. I think that's an awesome thing, not just for pro wrestling, but for a lot of stuff out there. That's a great idea. Now, in closing, do you maybe any advice for people trying to enter pro wrestling, acting, or just chasing something you love? Any life advice?
Put your heart and soul into it. My motto is good is the enemy of great. A lot of people say, oh, it's good enough. No. Be great. Strive to be great. Do more. It's just like if you want to be a good hitter, stay in that batting cage. Take extra batting practice. Acting, you're going to have to just keep at it. Memorization is the hardest part. I hate that shit. It's like being in school again. But I got to know what the hell you're going to say, so I know what I got to say when I'm going to say it. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's so tough. But you got to practice at it and to hit the marks and things like that. You just, if you want to be good, and then you want to be great, because that's what's going to separate you from everybody else. Be great. You just got to stay at it, put your heart and soul into it. But respect the people that are making you, just like a crew. You can't make a movie without the crew. You got to work with a partner in a wrestling match, whoever's going over. Respect the people around you.
That's great advice. Now, is there any social media you want to plug too?
Facebook. That's the biggest thing I'm on. Nikita Breznikov. If you have followers in common, yeah, because you got to be careful today. I get a lot of things from like these single or from women, and it's like you see, no friends in common. You never know what the hell. It's like, no, I ain't touching that shit. So it's like, if I have multiple friends, or I can see that somebody that's reasonable and good, sure, I'm wide open. Look, nobody, and I've met a lot of big stars over the years, and they were always nice people. We all go through the same shit. Nobody gets out alive, so nobody is better than anybody. Just, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Great words. Nikita Breznikov, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
До свидания.